Welcome everyone to our second webinar offered to our dressage community. This webinar is being provided in English, however, we welcome French questions. Céline Hutchison-Majerus is here to support with translation for French inquiries. We hope you find this session both informative and entertaining. For those not familiar with the Zoom feature, we ask that you mute your line to avoid any background interference. If you wish to submit a question during the session, please use the Q&A function, which you can find in your toolbar, which should appear at the bottom of your screen. As we have a lot of people joining us tonight, we do ask for your patience if we experience technical difficulties during the session. So without further delay, I will turn the session over to Ron King for our introductions.
Hi, welcome fellow Canadian equestrians. This is our second webinar brought to you by Equestrian Canada entitled Dressage Trends. My name is Ron King and I'm happy to be your moderator again today. I'm an Equestrian Canada certified coach and judge based here in our nation's capital. For this webinar, we have the privilege of having two FEI 5-star Canadian judges join us as panelists, Cara Whittam and Libby McMullen. I would like to thank our audience for joining us this evening and Equestrian Canada for offering this educational session. So to start, to have introductions, Cara has been a celebrated career, she has a celebrated career as a judge and continues to mentor many judges in Canada and around the world. She has held the record of being the only official to obtain 5-star FEI judging credentials for both dressage and eventing. Plus, she received FEI status as a dressage technical delegate, eventing steward, and dressage course director. Cara's judging career has taken her around the world and to the top of the sport. She was appointed technical delegate of dressage for WEG 2018 in Tryon. Cara was appointed to the dressage ground jury for the 2003 and 2011 Pan Am Games, the 2005 European Dressage Championships, and WEG 2010. In addition, Cara has been instrumental to the competition system in Canada. She has organized over 200 national and 30 international competitions and held the position of technical advisor for the Coupe des Amériques in Blainville, Quebec, which was the first FEI dressage team competition held within North or South America. Cara also founded the Canadian FEI Youth Championship and was a leader in introducing the eventing and dressage young horse classes in Canada. A former manager and director of dressage for Equestrian Canada, Cara has given back to the organization throughout her long and illustrious career, providing invaluable service through various volunteer roles, including chair of the former Dressage Canada Committee and being EC Category A member, as well as having been the chair of the officials task force. Cara is also a high performance Equestrian Canada coach. Libby McMullen is of Tottenham, Ontario, is an accomplished international dressage judge, in addition to having achieved the FEI's highest accreditation of 5-star. Lib is also qualified as an EC Senior Dressage Judge, USEF Senior Dressage Judge, and FEI Young Horse Dressage Judge. During her judging career, Lib has judged FEI competitions in England, Poland, Holland, Australia, Italy, Brazil, Ukraine, Russia, Honduras, Costa Rica, Colombia, France, Spain, Germany, USA, and Canada. As an FEI 5-star dressage judge, Lib is currently one of only 36 dressage judges worldwide qualified to judge at the World Equestrian Games and the Olympic Games. Her judging highlights include WEG in Normandy, France, and Jerez in Spain, the World Cup finals in Paris, France, and Gothenburg in Sweden, several North American youth championships, and the Pan American, Asian, and Central American Games. As an EC certified high performance coach 1, Lib conducts clinics and seminars throughout Canada, the United States, and Central America. As Guatemala's national dressage coach from 2005 to 2011, Lib guided them to the top of the podium for the team and individual gold at the 2006 Central American Games. In addition to her judging and coaching, Lib's been Director of Equine Studies at Humber College in Ontario, Chef d'équipe to the Canadian team at the New Zealand Dressage Derby, Chair of Canada's National Dressage Committee, a member of the Canadian Equestrian Team Advisory Committee, a member of the FEI World Cup Committee, Chair of Dressage Canada's Official Committee, North American Representative to the FEI Dressage Committee, and a member of the Board of Dressage Canada. So let's start this session off with a personal question for our panelists. What is your fondest judging experience or your most memorable moment? So who would like to start?
I don't know if it's memorable. I don't know if, can you hear me?
Yes.
I don't know if it's fond, but it's certainly memorable. I think before I became a 5-star judge, I was invited to do the World Cup final in Paris, Bercy. And if you've ever been in Paris, in Bercy, it's a huge stadium. It's scarlet, it's red, and it goes up to the heavens. And Bernard Morel, the French judge, warned me that the French were very, very vocal. And I didn't know what to expect. I was too busy worrying about doing my judging. Anyways, I was sitting at B. Uwe Macklin was across from me at E. Elena Kondratieva was at H. Nigli was at C. Bernard was at M, or wherever the letters are. Anyways, this announcer works very, very hard to get the public all revved up. And the public knows nothing, like nothing. So Uwe gave a mark, we'll say 65. Nobody says anything. Kondratieva is 66. There's cheering and stomping and applauding. They're delighted. Nigli goes down by 1 point. There's booing and hissing. Then up goes Bernard. And then they come to me. I'm still high, but I was lower than Bernard. And they boo and they hiss and they carry on. And in this stadium, it's so huge. I was very happy to have been warned that they do this sort of thing. It was something. That's it, Ron.
Okay, great. And Cara?
I don't have an outstanding judging moments. I mean, there's been so many fantastic horses and riders and incidents that I don't really want to pull one out, but there is something that will always be in my memory, and it has to do with our 1988 Olympic dressage team that has won us still our only Olympic bronze medal in Seoul, Korea. And it was to do with Yat Pot. I don't know how many people who remember Yat Pot. I mean, that goes a long way back. Absolutely brilliant judge. Had, what he says, photographic memories. And he literally did, because he proved it a couple of times. But he was very much in favor and supportive of Canada when we had gone into Europe before Seoul to just tour and compete. And he said to me, Cara, your team is going to medal, when I saw him in Europe. And I said, oh, okay, that's wonderful, I hope so. And then he sent to me, because I was in the EC office at that time, he sent me a poem, which I believe Gina Smith still has, of which it ended up, the finishing words was, and the bronze will go to Canada. And that's what we had. It was fantastic.
Great. Thank you very much. So we have then, starting out with other questions, we move to the participant questions that were submitted in advance of tonight's webinar. The first question is from Crystalon. How do you feel about the FEI's decision to drop the collective marks? How do paces, impulsion, submission get the attention they need? So who would like to tackle that first?
You want me to start, Lib?
You can, Cara.
Hello, Christy, if you're watching. Thanks for this question. I actually, in the beginning, was very much against them dropping the collective marks for specific reasons that you are now questioning, Crystal. However, what I have found in the judging education coming out of FEI is that as soon as they dropped all of these collective marks, they then turned on we the judges and said, now listen here, you have to be more exact in your judging in order that each movement reflects some of those collective marks that are now missing. So we all sort of cringed and said, but we were doing as well we thought before. And they said no, and we have, and Libby's done it too. We have been shown lots of different examples. Let's take a Piaf. And we had to split the hair of the split hair right down, and we had to be much more specific, and we had to justify why we were giving this mark or not, etc., etc. So it really got you thinking. So in the end point, Chris Lott, my feeling is it doesn't bother me that the collective marks have gone. They haven't gone in the national tests yet. Well, not all of them, okay? So I think that's a good build-up. And by the time you come into the FEI level, yeah, we want beautiful moving horses and all that, but we also want harmonious, correct training. And that should be reflected in the marks given per movement throughout the tests. And just in a closing to this one, the FEI will have their AGM, I guess, in November. And it's already on the table to be voted on because it was put forward at the last year agenda, AGM. They will be removing the word rider for this mark, and they will be inserting general impression. And I think that's a much better mark. Over to you, Lib.
Okay, I don't feel quite as positive about it as you do, Cara. I think it's part of the trend, and we'll get into this as the hour goes on, of the change in judging. I think they're trying to clean up, refine, save time, shorten things. And yes, we are supposed to be judging all the things that they've taken out of the collectives in every movement. I'm not convinced that this happens.
That's a different question, Lib.
I think we try very, very hard. But again, I think it's a sign of the times, and you're going to find that things get shorter and shorter and more condensed. So on a personal level, I'd rather see the collectives. It's not up to me. It's called go with the flow.
Wow, Cara, do you have any more to say after?
Me?
Yes.
No, and I totally agree with Libby about the trend is to shorten and hurry up. Any judge who has judged FEI levels, particularly somewhere in Florida, I mean, you get everything swept out from under you before you've even closed your last halt mark practically. And I mean, we've gone to paperless judging now, you know, Libby's absolutely right. Everything is hurry up. speed, partly for the TV, but not totally. I think in some instances it's to actually to get maybe a few more entries in, possibly, but maybe for the sponsors it's more interesting if there's less lag in what's going on. Yeah.
I think they also want to get the scores up
Yep.
at the big shows as quickly as they can. And if they have the judges sitting there worrying about the collective marks at the bottom, this doesn't happen.
Right.
So it really speeds things up, and speed, because Kara can tell you as a TD, and I can too, it's all about television. And you've got to stay to the timetable. Everything has to happen right. So you're too, Kara.
Okay. And speaking of timetables,
Yeah.
question number 2 is from Janine, who thanks us for taking the time to do this webinar. And her question is about the current state of dressage and the changes seen over time. Have you seen a change over the years in how horses are presented and trained? Is there pressure to reward the flashy versus correct horses? And maybe if you can just add to that, where do you see the sport going in future?
Liv?
That could take 2 hours. Just that one question. Yes, things have changed a whole lot. The type of horses have changed. The type of training has changed. The riders have changed how they're riding. I think all of these changes are for the good. I think we see less rammed and jammed horses. I should think of a nicer word than that. But, you know, we don't see as many mouth open, tongue out. We see better balance. We see more harmony, or that's what we're trying to find out. What's the rest of, there's so much to this question, Ron. Paperless judging, as Kara said, I can see in the future where computers are going to be judging. I can't hear you.
Me? Are you looking?
Oh, Ron.
Ron?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. She wanted to know more about flashy versus correct horses and where you see the sport going more and more in future.
You know, this is a problem. The FEI is on it. And certainly with the 5-star judges, they are definitely on it. And with all of the judges, I think names carry weight. I think the more educated you are, the more you know what you're looking for instead of flashy. It's got to be correct. You've got to have engagement. You've got to have balance. You've got to have harmony, and not just something with its front legs up in the ceiling. Is that, Kara? Help
Yeah.
out here.
No, it's pretty well that. I think the first thing that I've noted throughout the change is the quality of the horse that is being brought to the arena now. Breeders are much more looking for much more different things in a horse than they used to. I remember we used to have such big heavy horses, and you'd see a lot of people bumping and kicking and thumping a lot because these horses really were not elegant dressage horses. They're probably half made to go in the field in their spare time. So, you know, things have changed that way. I think the riding definitely has changed for the better in most parts. The problem I see in riding now is shortcuts, because people are a little more educated on how to get what they want out of their horses than they used to be. So you often see the shortcut, which in the end comes back to bite the rider. Somewhere down the road, it will. The flashy business that Libby referred to, I totally agree with her. I mean, none of us, the judges, will accept this high front leg and not very much going on behind type of thing. It's very flashy, and that's all we can say about it.
I need to interrupt here. All of a sudden, I have a screen that says Zoom, and on the right, I have I'm Bolt, the Zoom virtual assistant. I don't know where the main screen's gone. I have no idea how to get it. Can anybody help?
On the bottom of your screen, do you see anything that says Zoom webinar? Do you
Nope.
have a little,
No, I have a white thing that says Zoom in blue.
Okay.
Yeah, nothing. I'm wondering if I should get off and come on again as quickly as I can. There's nothing here.
Okay, can you still hear us and everything?
Oh yeah, I can hear your voice. I
Okay,
don't see anything. Maybe I don't need to see anything.
Do you have to see us?
No, I don't actually. Can you see
Okay.
me?
I can see you.
Okay.
If you're okay with continuing like this, because everyone can still hear you.
Okay.
All right. So we have a next question from Darcy Jean. Given the drop in attendance and interest in dressage shows in Canada, is it time for competition dressage to change its focus? What is the end game to bring the grassroots riders into the show ring to perpetuate the sport? How can this be done while we still rewarding the original focus on development of the horse instead of winning? This is a difficult question. Let me try to reword again. What is the end game to bring the grassroots riders into the show ring? And how can this be done while still rewarding the original focus on development of the horse instead of winning? Who would like to start with that?
This question itself could take the whole evening, because you've got so many facts inside this. This isn't one question. I think the drop in attendance and interest in dressage shows primarily is financial.
Mm-hmm.
That's your first thing. Everything is much too expensive for everybody. And having sat on both sides of the fence as an exhibitor and a competition organizer, I can see both sides too. The problem is that from better education and better horses, the demand for better footing, for example, has come very high on a rider's want list. So the riders very often no longer will go to the more local show that has, shall we say, a nice sand ring, but perhaps that sand has a couple of rocks in it, you know what I mean? They want the modern fiber type footing, and it's understandable why they want it. Problem is, very few stables, other than the very large ones, have that. A place that can run a show that has enough of that footing and large enough facility. So, and those costs go on to the organizer. So the organizer then has to cover their costs somehow. So where does it go? It goes back to the competitor. So it's sort of a vicious circle in that way. And I can understand it from both sides. I definitely, I do definitely agree that it's time for Canadian dressage, or those who call the shots, shall we say, to take a look at our circuits. I mean, I've got many ideas, which I will not share tonight because you get me on my soapbox and poor old Liv will never get a word in sideways on it. But it's not an easy thing to answer, Ron. That's what I'm saying with this, you know. The grassroots riders, I think if the costs were easier to those people, if one-day shows were more popular, so they didn't have to pay stabling, etc., etc., I think all of that can be built up But the primary problem right now with dressage in Canada at the basic through medium coming towards FEI levels, not at, but coming towards, is finances. Liv, do you have anything to say to that?
No, I agree 100%. I talk to so many people, I sort of say, are you showing? No, I can't afford it. It's just everything with our sport has become expensive. Membership fees, entry fees, it's expensive. Do we have a meeting ID? Because I've got to a page that is asking for a meeting ID.
That would have been in the email, Ron, I think.
Yes, in your email there would have been
No,
a
that's
meeting
the
ID.
password.
Okay.
It's okay. Don't worry about it. I just.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anything more?
We do have someone technically who is trying to help on the sideline as well.
Okay.
So we can maybe go on to the next question for now. That it actually, you both already talked a little bit about this. Can you comment on the extended trot where the legs do not move in diagonal pairs, but the front legs seem to reach further with more height and therefore more flamboyance?
What would they like us to comment about? And no, I'm not being rude, really. An educated judge should see this and mark the horse down. If a flashy, flamboyant horse in front with nothing happening behind is getting higher marks, then it should be questioned as to why this is happening.
Yeah, I have a little concern with the wording of this question, in as much as they do not move in diagonal pairs. You cannot get a 2-beat trot if the diagonal pairs don't work together. I think what the person who asked the question meant was that what they went on to explain was that the hind leg is less active than the front leg in the trot, but to say that they don't move on diagonal pairs is not really correct. So they should be very careful about thinking on that. I throw back my mind to judging totalists, because there were so many armchair experts saying, oh, he should never get more than a 6. And when you hear that, for me as a judge, when I hear that, I get annoyed. And the reason I get annoyed is because I try very, very hard when you have a questionable horse, whether the hind leg is overstepping the print of the front leg in an extension. I try very, very hard to look really closely at the ground cover and where the hoofs land. And I think to fix a horse with a comment like that, oh, he should never, is not fair. It's a little bit like horses have no say in going to clinics and be demonstrators. Riders do. And how many riders, all of you who are listening, have declined to be a demonstrator in a clinic? Why? Because you go away with the biggest fault you demonstrated at that clinic as a permanent scar on your reputation. And I liken that to the same way to these horses. I understand what the question means. Libby answered it perfectly. Educated judges will not reward it as high as a horse that can come through with more overstep from the hind leg with the same extravagance.
Okay, thank you. Now getting back for Libby, technically the number, ID number.
I'm working, Ron.
Oh, okay, we can continue then.
While
All
Carol
right.
was talking, I was fiddling, and
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fair enough. The next question, it's a long one and maybe more complicated. It's from Peter. In our judging courses and continuing education, It is very clearly presented on how to score the walk. In Wellington this year, I had a chance to observe many tests in 8 weeks, and the judging of the walk was not following the guidelines of judging education. There was never much reward for a very expressive extended walk, nor were big demerits given for a walk showing lateral tendency, or at least where the rhythm could have been better. Why are top judges overlooking the scoring of this important gait?
Liv, your turn.
Thanks a lot, Cara.
Oh,
This is in Wellington, this was saying, and I guess I wonder, were they top judges that were judging? Okay. Because we're very careful not to let this happen. I don't know what to say.
well, I think what I would say on it is that I don't care whether you're a beginner judge or the best top judge in the world.
Honesty.
Yeah, you got to know what you're judging and not just let something go and let it, you know. I mean, and a good example also is the big sensitive comment about the extended walk. Oh, well, they let the reins go way, way long, so it got really loose. Well, of course, that is one of the points that the judge notices. But first and foremost, they should look at the quality of the walk itself and the clarity of the rhythm. And those two are the primary points that you're going to focus on judging. If the reins get a little too loose, very often the horse drops the contact. Sometimes the riders are very clever, and when they leave the horse free as if he's going home, he may not have a wonderful walk, but he does stretch just a tiny bit more when he's on a looser rein. I take my hat off to that rider, being a clever rider, but I will say horse should stretch to the bit and maintain a light contact. That's something like that. But if he has a nice quality walk, I'll give him a quality mark.
And I think the rules say the weight of the rein should be in the rider's hands.
So while you're both talking about this, we have a few people commenting that the question was concerning the lack of proper judging the walk in competitions in Wellington this year.
It was.
And one person, Janet, would like to know, would you please quickly cover the subject on this question? I'm not totally understanding her question. Discussing, so the clarity of the walk, I guess, how would the walk get a 10 versus a 0?
Well, a 10 would mean that the horse would be stretching out with the nose forward, maintaining a light contact to the hand. The pole in an extended walk should not drop below the withers. And very often we see that happening. That tells you there that something's a little bit wrong in the contact, you know, when they go lower than that. When a really good walk, I get the hair stand on the back of my neck because it looks like a giant cat, the horse, walking across the ground. Every part of the horse is involved in the walk. And clear, large, ground-covering strides, you know, and that's what gives, I mean, it's very difficult to verbalize something because that is the sort of thing you need a video to show, well, this is medium, this is good, this is really good here, you know, but the horse shows full overstep, total relaxation, and every part of his body is involved in the walk without tension or rushing. Now the lateral walk, oh gosh, I mean, I think this has been a bane to every judge sometime in their life, and it has definitely been a bane to course conductors trying to teach judges to see, because honestly, some judges cannot see a lateral walk. And it's, I don't know, it's the way their eyes follow the horse. I don't know what it is. So again, the person has to have videos, maybe slow motion videos, to educate that judge's eye on what is a lateral or a, what we call a dangerous walk, getting on the edge. But we cannot, neither Libby or I can actually answer what went on in Florida. We weren't there. We cannot tell you. I mean, we can only explain what we have seen and what we do know.
And the tendency, you know, if you've got a rather nice horse, and often those very flashy horses, their walks may suffer. So the judge is sitting there going 7-8, 7-8, 8-8, 8-8. Here comes the walk. Well, gee, it's not so good. Do they go down enough? And I guess it's the experience of the judge that makes a big difference here. Where lateral walks are concerned, I'm kind of a toughie there. If it's lateral, it's not sufficient. However, I know some of my colleagues will give 6, 6.5, 7. I don't. So if you have a lateral walk, you're going to get a 4 from me.
And just to add to that, because actually a lady called Diane just sent in another question concerning this. Speaking about marks, that 5 is sufficient and 6 is satisfactory. And she was mentioning, how do you think to differentiate between applying these marks? So I guess she means between a 5 and a 6. What's sufficient versus what's satisfactory?
The sufficient is he's walking in 4 beats.
Good
Okay.
luck, Kara. Love it.
All right.
Satisfactory is he may be showing some stretch and some ground cover. Does that help?
Yes, perfect. Thank you. The next question is from Wendy. Do you think the rider marks give enough scope to include correct equitation? Or should there be another mark, especially for youth riders, that evaluates the effectiveness of position and aids?
Want me to go, Kara?
Yeah, sure.
I think position in this, I know where there was some discussion the other day about children's tests. I think getting young people to ride correctly is of paramount importance. I don't think judging the equitation of our Grand Prix riders is a particularly valuable exercise. So I'm not quite sure where the question comes from. I think ponies, youth, anything, children, anything like that, yes, there should be an emphasis on equitation. After that, I don't know, good is as good does. A good rider is going to look pretty good and they'll get the job done. If they have major faults, the job isn't going to get accomplished. Kara.
No, well, it's basically, if you sit correctly, your horse goes much, much better. I mean, it sounds simple, and unfortunately, it's not demonstrated as much as we would like. But if you actually learn to sit correctly, even the lower level horse will go better. The reason is that you're correctly balanced. You're sitting in the middle of the horse, not to one side or leaning back or tipping forward. So its balance and its relaxation and suppleness can improve right there. And I mean, I'm sure, Libby, too, in clinics, you've proven that to riders over and over and over again. Less is more. Just ride in a good position with a following seat, you know, and well positioned hands, etc. So, you know, I mean, we've got lots in Canada that we have the equitation classes, but I don't know how much they took off. I know in British Columbia, they have this fantastic program. I've had the pleasure of judging it, where they take these younger kids and they do all sorts of fun things, which include equitation, but dressage tests, etc., etc. And it's a great way to, shall we say, motivate the kids for a reason to ride better.
And just to elaborate on that a little bit, we have a comment from Anne that would it be helpful to include equitation in our lower national tests?
Well, what does she mean by in the test?
That's the question, in our lower national tests. So I'm not sure if it's a separate mark or that you maybe have an equitation component outside of the test that then is combined with your tests.
Or
The
is it an
technical test.
equitation class? We judge those as well sometimes. She's going to have to clarify her question.
Yeah,
And she may, yes, okay, she's just continuing now that, and to your point, Cara, the equitation has not taken, or the equitation have not taken on, would it be helpful to make equitation classes mandatory for the division?
Which division?
the lower level, probably training first level. I don't think anything mandatory works in North America. You don't have enough discipline, you know. But of course, if people were told, well, if you don't ride in the equitation, you can't enter your technical classes or you can't go in your freestyle, it might be interesting to see if that actually had a positive impact on the overall riding of in the dressage lower levels. I don't know.
But then I agree with what you're saying, Kara. I think it might be a good idea, but I'm not sure that those people are going to want to pay additional fees for an additional class. And so we're back to money again. So maybe yes, if you want to ride in the recognized class, you have to be in an equitation class, but that's free. You need to be there to advance into the real tests. Yeah.
Okay. The next one is a little bit of a can be a little bit of a loaded question. How important is the first center line for impression? The reason why I say it's loaded is when you go very often to pick up score sheets as a competitor, and you may overhear other people picking up tests and saying, that judge doesn't like my horse, or that judge doesn't like that horse. There's and so going back to the center line, does that set the whole tone for the test? If you guys would like to elaborate on that.
You know, it's you got to hold at X. You have to be immobile. You have to be on the bit. The riders have to read the directives, okay? And I don't think, and as a judge, I get pretty annoyed. Oh, that judge doesn't like my horse. Well, I don't think it's a matter he doesn't like your horse. He doesn't like the way your horse is going, or perhaps the way you're riding it. And you've got to be able to fulfill the directives. So you got to get to X. You got to halt. You have to be immobile. You have to have a clean depart. You have to stay on the bit. Then you're going to get a really good mark. If you walk into halt, walk out of halt, your horse is looking at the clouds or something, you look like you've had too many glasses of wine going between X and C, it's going to bring the mark down proportionately. I don't think it's loaded. Do you, Cara? Is it loaded?
No. I think the answer to this question is go watch Carl, Hester, and Charlotte train at home. One of their most important things is the center line, and where I don't think that it makes a big impact for the entire test, but it makes a very good introduction of you and your horse to the judge. And what I see, and I'm sure Lib will agree, is at all levels, People don't train the Centerline and the halt. They just don't. And they throw away marks unbelievably. Some could say it's difficult. I don't think a Centerline is difficult. There are ways you train it. Your horse gets used to it. And there you go. You always have good Centerlines. So I think it goes back to the coaching and the riding, not the horse.
It's also the first impression.
Yep.
So if you come wiggling up the center line and you can't halt, I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, wow, I can't wait to watch the rest of this test. It has an impact. We, believe it or not, are human. So I guess my suggestion to riders, it's really, really important to get the best halt you can, to make the best impression you can. But not just for the impression, all your movements, you should be trying to get the best and do the best you can.
And I think at the lower levels in the halt run, we see far too many riders coming in, even though the directives allow you to perhaps take a step or two into or out of. They don't. They come in and bam, they throw out the anchors and whoomp, we've stopped. Any old how. And people have to, like Liv said earlier, read your directives, read what the judge said about your entrance, but do everything in a forward, gradual production into your Centerline, into your halt, into your transition out. And very soon you'll have a super Centerline.
On those same lines, someone has a question that kind of continues with that. What do you see as a common thread in dressage training that needs to be addressed? How can we attract new riders, which we've talked about a little bit before? And how do you attract new judges and other officials?
That's a
There's
four-part
a few questions.
question. That's a four-part question.
It is.
It is. Yeah. Mm.
Which would you like to start with?
Well, I think the first part is how can we, who's we? How can we attract new riders? Who's we?
How can we attract? That's the question. I guess we as a community. I'm just looking in the box to see if there's further questions. I guess we as a community,
Well,
of judges, of people.
That is a huge question again. We don't have time tonight to answer all of that. Success breeds success. I know it's a very glib way of saying things, but right, we've already heard somebody say the down or the deterioration of the attendance at dressage shows in Canada. Well, that alone is not going to attract people. So the whole circuit, the whole system has to come in with a more positive outlook, a more positive result at all levels, different rewards, in order to bring them more people and more interest. I think it says youth and amateur. Amateur, it's the finances themselves. They want to have fun. And that is one of the things for me that has gone out of our sport, because everything is too expensive to us to have fun anymore. Oh yeah, you may have fun in the barn with your friends afterwards, but you don't have fun while you're showing. You can get a thrill if your horse does a fantastic test. You get a wonderful mark. That's fun, but that doesn't happen every show, much as we like it to. So the real concept behind this sport is the fun of it has gone. Whether it's because things are more expensive, animals are more expensive, training costs more, I don't know. But the fun side of it has gone. And that is what the amateurs are in it for, to enjoy themselves. And they may not ride as perfectly as we would like them, but they are making a good effort, they are enjoying their horses, and they want the whole experience of showing to be enjoyable. And that's still finance for them. For the youth, they are usually still dependent on the parents or sponsors. And again, we come back to the finances. I said it way in the beginning of this meeting. Finance, finance, finance. We have to find a different way if we want to grow our sport in this country. Liv?
I have nothing to add to that, Kara. I agree 100%.
Yeah, yeah. It's a difficult one. What was the other part of it, Ron?
Well, just getting back to those sport recruitment, Anita had a question. What are other jurisdictions doing to promote and encourage the sport?
Other jurisdiction, other sports, you mean, not equestrian?
I guess maybe jumping, if she means jumping or eventing versus dressage. Let me see if I can get any clarification.
I don't think that's a question for us necessarily.
Okay.
She may mean province to province.
Yeah.
She may mean provincial federation. She may mean, as Kara said, jumping or eventing or something like that.
Oh, actually, she just clarified. She means in other countries or provinces.
So which I didn't think we were just talking about one province.
No, we're talking across the
Yeah.
Canada. So I guess maybe in what other countries?
Well, in other countries, many countries, because both Liv and I travel a lot, the same problem is happening, and it's mostly cost, okay? Not always, but mostly cost. Even to the hallowed hall of dressage, Germany, they are losing shows left, right, and center. Yes, there are clubs, and there are still very active club shows. I suppose we could liken them to Trillium, or if that helps, Canada understand club shows versus the gold show. But Germany is losing not only the FEI shows, but they're losing their national shows. And again, the reason they're losing it is not a lack of interest, it's a lack of sponsorship, money again.
Okay, I'm just trying to keep up with the questions coming in, actually. And we only have a limited time. Do judges influence the changes that happen within the sport?
Yes.
Especially,
I think, especially at the 5-star level. I don't know how many people listening. Every year, Kara referred to it earlier, we have to go to a mandatory seminar where all the 5 stars and some technical delegates, the judges, supervisory panel, that sort of thing get together. And changes in ideas, changes in directives are run by us first. So if they make a suggestion and everybody says, oh no, 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 that probably is put off. So yeah, we do have input. The 5 stars do.
yeah, and I mean, impact on the sport in general depends if the coach and rider read our comments. What else is there? The new judges and other officials, honestly, Ron, it comes straight back to the whole problem that we've discussed this evening, which is we need to build the base first before we can encourage others to come and be part of it.
Okay, thank you. Because sorry, I was on mute there for a moment. We have a question, just getting back to the money issue. From Anne, is the money prize money or operating money to operate a show, or is it the prize money that's costing the show too much?
Usually if, and it's not many shows have prize money in dressage, only Florida. And, but if the prize money is given to a show, it's by a sponsor usually. And that show simply gives all that money to the competitors. But operating costs are horrendous for organizers. But I'm also going to stand up for the riders. They have huge costs. And one of the problems is these 2 and 3 day shows where people travel long distance and then they have to pay stabling, they have to pay a hotel. Okay, some are very smart and they've got RVs now. So hopefully you have camper hookups on the showgrounds. If you don't, you get sent off to look for some campground, you know. So there's many, many things that I feel have not really seriously been looked at within dressage. I'm not talking about jumping and eventing. They have their problems too. But to make dressage better, we have to put a little blood on the carpet. It sounds terrible to say that, but I think in order to build the base and then go on, a lot needs to be corrected, shall I say. But I mean, it's up to the Federation to have those round table discussions with people. But it's cost, cost, cost. Everywhere you turn, it's cost.
And the organizers don't have a lot of choice. They have to pay fees to the Federation, fees for stabling, fees for shavings, rental fees,
Yeah.
and these all get passed on to the rider, not to mention, as Kara did, hotels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So costs need somehow to be reduced. Maybe we need somebody. In the old days, we used to be going after sponsorship. That seems to, well, I don't know, maybe it's fallen by the wayside. There's a lot of fairly wealthy people out there, if they were approached properly, perhaps, might contribute. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, somebody said a long time ago, you have to have a product to sell it to a sponsor. And your product has to be pretty slick and well presented. And honestly, I don't think we could do that in Canada right now to a big sponsor. The Florida bubble, as we call it, I shouldn't say all, but most of our top riders either go to Florida or to California. For obvious reasons, the weather's nice, you don't have the snow shovels, etc. And you have excellent showgrounds, top judges coming in to judge you. And in the Florida side, you have millions of people who want to be seen and to rub shoulders with the who's who. And I'm not talking about the riders now. I'm talking about the sponsors. And that's where the sponsorship comes.
Wonderful. Unfortunately, we don't have any time left. I'd like to thank both Libby and Kara for their support in offering this session to the community, and thank all of the audience for your great questions that you submitted in email or in addition during this webinar. And this webinar will be recorded and posted on the Equestrian Canada website for future reference. And the last webinar we had with Jamie and Tina Irwin is available on the EC site. So please stay tuned, as we may have more webinars coming in future. And I would like to wish you all a good evening and continue to stay safe. Good night.
Thank you, Ron.